What do you do when you file a restraining order against your own father, and he finds out at your sister's wedding? He found out during the cocktail hour. Becca was still on the lawn in her dress taking photographs. The reception hall was full of people celebrating. I saw the process server come through the main door. I knew immediately what was happening. My father received the envelope near the bar. His eyes moved slowly across the room and found me standing at the window. He crossed the room toward me. What is this? I think you know what it is. You did this at your sister's wedding. I didn't choose when service happened. You could have waited. I'd been waiting long enough. He folded the envelope, put it in his inside pocket, and walked toward the exit. I watched him go. Then I turned back to the room and went to find the bar. Here's what led to the filing. My father was never physically violent. He was the other kind, the one who controlled through presence and unpredictability. Warm on Tuesday, devastating on Wednesday. Not knowing which version was coming kept everyone in a permanent state of readiness. My parents divorced when I was 14. The behavior that had been contained within the marriage followed us into parking lots and workplaces and apartment building corridors at 7 at night. The accumulation that made it undeniable happened in the 18 months before Becca's wedding. The appearances at places I hadn't told him I'd be. The visits to my workplace after I'd asked for space. The escalating messages. The night he stood outside my apartment door for 40 minutes talking through it in that low, controlled voice. I'd been keeping a documentation folder on the advice of my therapist. It took 6 months for the resistance to move out of the way, enough for me to actually consider what she was saying. I called an attorney named Patricia Sung. She said my grounds were solid. The question wasn't whether to file, but when. I chose before the wedding. Public setting, witnesses, safer for everyone. Becca knew I was filing. She supported me completely. Whatever happens, I want you there, and nothing he does changes that. The rehearsal dinner was the night before. My father was charming. He told a story that made the whole table laugh. I gave my toast without looking at him once. The morning of the wedding, Becca in her dress was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. The ceremony was outdoors. September light. Jamie cried when she came down the aisle. My father walked her and handed her to Jamie with what looked like genuine emotion. The cocktail hour started at 2 at. I was near the window. I saw the server. I watched my father receive the envelope. I watched his head come up and his eyes find me. He crossed the room. This is going to destroy her day. That was going to depend entirely on your response to it. He looked at me, like he was encountering a version of me that didn't match the one he'd been operating from. Then he folded the envelope and walked out. My mother appeared at my elbow within 60 seconds. Are you okay? Yes. She squeezed my arm and went back to the party. Becca appeared 90 seconds later. Jamie had held her back so my mother could get to me first. She looked at me with that assessing way she'd used since childhood. You did the right thing. I know. Now I'm going back to my wedding. She squeezed my hand and walked back to Jamie. The wedding continued. Claudine found me on the dance floor. How was that? About what I expected. Did your voice shake? No. I didn't think it would. I gave the maid of honor speech. It made Becca cry properly. I was present for everything. The consent agreement was signed 2 weeks later. Distance requirements clearly written. Attorney-mediated contact provision. My mother called to say she'd known for years that what I described was real. She was sorry for the times she'd minimized it. The order makes complete sense to me, not just legally. In every sense, Becca called every few days. Sometimes about the serious things. Sometimes just about her new apartment. The small domestic negotiations of combining 2 lives. I saw Dr. Reyes after signing the agreement. How does it feel? It feels like the first day of a life where I don't have to manage the specific ongoing fear of him appearing. Somewhere I don't expect him, not knowing whether something is possible is different than believing it. Isn't I land on not knowing in a way that doesn't close the door. I stood at my living room window the evening after signing. The light was good. I'd arranged my apartment around the light 6 months ago. The legal process is ongoing. Some days I feel the weight. Other days I think about Becca's face at the ceremony, the fullness of her happiness, and the weight lifts. I'm sleeping better now. Painting on Saturday mornings. The routine itself is a kind of protection. Not the legal kind, but the emotional one. The structure of a life I built deliberately, without waiting for someone else to approve it. What do you do when you file a restraining order against your own father and he finds out at your sister's wedding? You stand by the window and watch him leave. You turn back to the room and find the bar. You make the toast, you dance the dances. You are present for everything that matters. You go home and sleep better than you have in months. You sign the agreement on a Wednesday morning and tell your therapist it feels like the first day of something. You paint on Saturday. Mornings in the good light. You keep going. That's what you do.